I-V-M.
Hey, welcome to episode 74 of Shunya One. We have a really interesting conversation coming up with Mihir Shah. Mihir works on technology and growth at Hotstar. He's a really smart guy, and we get into a lot of different subjects. We talk a little bit about regional content. We talk about how the freemium model plays out, and just, the kind of technology challenges they face at Hotstar, one of these large platforms. Last week, when we had Sairi on to talk about Shiros, after that we did a poll on our Slack channel asking, what do you think plays a bigger role in empowering women? The first answer was access to technology, the second access to education, and the third was a community platform for women. The clear answer that people thought was the clear winner was access to education. I think I'd agree with that myself. And with that, let's get on with our conversation with Mihir. I think you're going to really, really enjoy this.
All right, welcome to the show. We have with us today Mihir Shah, the VP of Product and Marketing Growth at Hotstar. Welcome to the show, Mihir.
Thanks, Shiladitya.
And thank you so much for making the trip from South Bombay, Hotstar, all the way to the suburbs. How has it been exploring the city in this year for you? I think it's your first year back in India after a long stint.
Yeah. So surprisingly, I lived in India for 25 years and then I lived in the US for about 9 years. So I never lived in Mumbai, even though I was born and brought up in Pune. Mm-hmm. So for me, yes, this is my first year in Mumbai after living in the US for 9 years. And I think exploring this city has been nothing less than that of an adventure.
Wow.
I think
you're being nice.
Yeah, adventures can be good and bad both, right?
He works at Hotstar. Hotstar is on Tulsi Pipe Road. Right now, anybody who has to go to Tulsi Pipe Road on a daily basis cannot be having a great time adventuring anywhere.
Absolutely. I think Uber and Ola, they just refuse our rides anymore because nobody wants to come there. So I think it's truly an adventure trying to figure out with them, मैं यहाँ पर खड़ा हूँ, आप यहाँ पर आओ, वहाँ पर आओ, right? So I think it's been an interesting journey so far, but I think the vibe of the city, my wife, my 2-year-old daughter, and me, we just loving the vibe of the city. We love eating out. We love exploring the places around. But yeah, so far it's been good.
Awesome. And so in the 9 years, obviously you've been in you've been in Silicon Valley, you've been at Seattle, in a whole bunch of cool companies. How's the journey been from all these names I can see, obviously, IBM, Google, Amazon, Square? What's it been for you and how does this all come to where you are today?
Yeah. So I think before I went to US for my MBA degree, I worked in India for about 4 years. So, I was used to working in India. So I did experience a culture here. And then out there, did my business school for 2 years and 7 years worked out of business school. And I think the cultures are contrastingly different, both in US and in India. And in terms of the industries that I worked in, with Amazon being e-commerce, Square being fintech, Thumbtack being marketplace, and now Hotstar being media, despite being in tech, I got a very good flavor of various industries. And surprisingly, while you think about India, you talk about, we really stress a lot of importance on the output, that what is the key metric you're trying to drive. But I think one thing I learned in the US for 7 years is not only the output that you drive, but how do you get to the output is equally important. So that's what we call about the culture, right? The fabric that holds people together for sustainable growth. So I think that has been a very interesting observation for me to take a step back and soak it all in, that, okay, well, both high-performing cultures, both high-performing, multiple high-performing industries, but the stress that they give in the US on culture, how do you get to an answer, has been a very stark difference when I think about India.
What exactly do you mean, especially when you're looking at product, you're looking at tech products, right, across industries? So are you talking about how people think and solve for a problem, and here it's just brute force, or maybe give us some examples of things you may have seen?
Yeah, that seems like a statement that comes from some experience in particular, right?
Yeah.
What was it like at building products in Amazon or Square?
Yeah.
And how was it? And obviously here I'm sure your year in Hotstar has been full of a whole bunch of interesting things. Obviously IPL, and we just did Asia Cup, and there's the whole other Bollywood angle to media that's overbearing in India. So how was it how was it different before? If you could explain the kind of projects you guys did back in Silicon Valley and how it contrasts with how those got executed here.
Yeah. So I'll take an example of Square. So Square is more into, so it's a fintech. It's a product which allows you to accept payments using, for credit card payments, right? So it's a dongle that sits on your phone. You can accept payments, and then there are a bunch of SaaS products built around that hardware product, enabling small businesses to get better at their business, right? So there we're talking about it's a B2B product versus Hotstar is a B2C, right? So where in Square, the addressable market may be 20 million people. When I talk about Hotstar, the addressable market is whoever has a smartphone and access to a 4G, right? So which is India alone is like 400 million people is the addressable market, right? So these are the two very different industries and two different scales that we're talking about. But when it comes to the culture, the piece of the culture that I'm referring to, I think when it comes to Hotstar, I think everything we are like super fast. We just need to launch things. Like, for example, we launched the watch and play game during IPL. So while you are watching the game on TV or on Hotstar, you can play along predicting.
I think that's one of the most brilliant things I've ever seen on anything ever, though. I really, really thought that was really, really smart. Yeah,
I mean, thank you. We'll definitely pass on the feedback to our teams. But I think you'll be surprised to know that we just decided about that in Jan and IPL is in April.
Right.
So you can imagine building a product at that scale that would last a concurrency of 10 million people and almost 125 million viewers is insane. Yeah. You cannot dream of doing something like that. So to Shiladitya's point, it's like very brute force. Let's do this. Let's put all our energy in it. Let's just channelize and let's do that, right? Versus when you contrast it with somebody like a Square, I think there is that element of taking a step back, doing a lot of consumer research. Whom am I solving for? Who's my consumer? What problem are we trying to solve in their life? Right? It's you have this playbook that you have to like follow,
right?
And then you go and slowly launch a product.
Do you think that is a function of the fact that maturity of market, I guess, is one aspect, but also the fact that that's more of a B2B business, where more research is probably possible?
Even in B2C abroad, I mean, maybe if you go back to the Amazon or Thumbtack or something like that, which were sort of B2B, B2C. And again, your peers in the B2C community, I think they are able to do this whole process. I mean, again, you have to, because the addressable market is very nuanced as well. Here,
it's a land grab, right?
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to kind of get across, right? I mean, like over there, you are kind of trying to find like, how do you slice your market? Whereas over here, it's just like, come on, let's get everybody in.
Get it. Right. But I think if you think, like coming back to the example of Amazon, which was B2C, and again, referring to culture. So Amazon has these 13 leadership principles, which, Jeff Bezos really sticks by, and every interview that goes through, every candidate is filtered for at least 6 of those 13 leadership principles. Right. So leadership principles like, have backbone, disagree and commit, think big, dive deep, bias for action. There are 13 of these leadership principles, and what's beautiful about these leadership principles is that each one has an equal and oppositely important one. So both of these leadership principles are working in the opposite direction. So that really forces you to do your best. So for example, right, the think big, where you really have to think no constraint thinking, and the other leadership principle that balances out is dive deep. Right. So they really work against each other, right? Then the next set of leadership principles, which again conflict with each other, is one is leaders are always right, right? And the other one is have backbone, disagree and commit. Where, I'm taking a step back, I'm sorry, whatever. So these are two very conflicting leadership principles. But I think for a company to have, like an Amazon, to have these leadership principles and to stick by it, and every new employee they get, they are screened for these leadership principles, and still they go out and they deliver these massive results, whether it's AWS, whether it's Alexa, whether it's retail. So that I think is a very interesting contrast, even in B2C.
Right, where they force themselves to fit to that culture and yet deliver.
Yet delivering, absolutely.
And here we deliver by any means.
Miraculously. I mean, I could not have imagined, because again, the downside of that is then you're holding yourself back. I don't think a product like Watch and Play would have been possible had we been so maniacally focused on leadership principles or thoughtfulness, where we're like, here's 2 months, look, there's IPL which is coming in 2 months, you got to just go ahead and launch it, right? So I think it's very interesting. So I think I'm really enjoying, being observing these two various, it's almost paradoxical for me.
Yeah.
And the ability, I feel very fortunate that I'm able to like step back and like pick and choose the best of what works for me and my personal values. So, I mean, again, overall, it's been fabulous.
Awesome. And of course, since you mentioned, since you've come back, you've had IPL, you've launched this. How's it been working? Like, what happens on the inside of the awesome folks at Hotstar, the product at Hotstar? Like, how are things? How have you seen the non-IPL season versus IPL season? And tell us a little about the tech culture at Hotstar, maybe.
Yeah. So we're always preparing for IPL. We're already preparing for our next IPL. So we just finished Asia Cup, right? So we just completed Asia Cup on Friday. And I think again it was fabulous. I think again we are every cricket season we're just breaking the previous record.
Wow.
In terms of viewership, in terms of the cricket viewership, in terms of entertainment viewership, right? So every cricket we are breaking now. Starting to Wednesday is India West Indies, which will go on to like November 11th.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're always preparing for IPL. I think there's going to be a lot of exciting things coming out the next IPL. We learned a lot of things from the previous IPL. I think gaming, social, we saw that with Watch and Play. There's going to be a lot more excitement coming out for the next IPL. But I think in terms of preparation for IPL, I think, figuring out how many servers you need, what is the concurrency, all of that is fine. But I think the most ecstatic moment is the day of IPL. I think I've never experienced this energy ever in my life anywhere. I remember when IPL launched, the day before IPL was a normal day. But the day of IPL, I think it was a Saturday. So despite it being a weekday, the whole office was there, including our CEO. We were all in the office. We were waiting for IPL to start, just getting our servers scaled up, our notifications engines going up. Everything was like, we were just getting ready for it. And the moment IPL began, it was insane. We got so much traffic. Things started breaking immediately. There was like an SOS protocol which was out there. People started coming in. Our engineers from Bangalore and Gurgaon also had flown down. And it was almost like there was like an open buffet for the team to come, eat, enjoy, eat, drink, whatever. But I think it was an ecstatic party. And I think when we ended IPL, there were like lots of things broke, our streams broke down, there were a lot of questions coming into customer support. But I think our team was so fabulous. Within every day, whatever issues we faced, at night, at 1 a.m. when IPL ended, the team would sit back, the engineering team, and they would record all these things from customer support, queries, and and they would make sure that it was fixed before the next day is launched.
Oh, wow.
So within the first 4 days, whatever things we found out were not working for something like this scale, because the scale was 2x than the previous IPL, right? So every night they would sit there, pretty much that's what they would do every day. I would be sitting with that team, we would figuring out what happened with notifications, what happened with on-site traffic. And I think it was fabulous. I think just seeing that energy of people come together was fabulous. Breaking all records.
Nice. And of course, that is what sort of drives the country. Now you've seen it, right? Cricket is literally what brings together so many people from so many aspects of life. How is it being at the helm of this as a media company, right? In the background, obviously, you're a tech team and you have like product folks, growth, and there are so many aspects to the job behind the scenes. But how is it as a media platform? What are the large, audacious goals for Hotstar? And could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So for us, of course, I think being a part of Star TV, which is a part of 21st Century Fox, right? So we take entertainment very seriously, right? So we are in the business of storytelling. Right. Sports is a form of storytelling, right? So sports is an acquisition driver for us, but our bread and butter is entertainment. Right. And I think we're truly blessed given that the amazing content that Star produces, whether it's Hindi, Bengali, Tamil, Telugu, right? So all the vernacular languages content we get. Along with that, we also have access to the library that Fox has. Right. From Fox Studios, we have with HBO, with Warner Studios, right? So we have some phenomenal content. Game of Thrones, This Is Us, Modern Family. You name some of the content, right? We recently did a survey. We asked about 7,000 people in India, give us the top 50 shows that you watch or you want to watch. You'd be surprised 38 of them are on Hotstar. Oh. Right. So so we're really blessed in terms of the content we have, the content we select. So clearly, I think, and as I said, cricket or Wimbledon or F1, all of these sports are an entry for our audiences to come and sample entertainment and stick around with us. So we do see this we take entertainment very, very seriously, even though we say, we spend crazy amounts of money in advertising around for cricket. But entertainment is our bread and butter, and I think we are dead damn serious about it. I would love to share some numbers because it makes me feel incredibly proud, but of course I cannot. But I think it's insane.
But obviously, you guys are sort of leading this whole movement of data consumption, and obviously we don't go episode without mentioning the word geo.
What's geo?
But this whole change which has happened in the Indian smartphone scene, where people have 4G and they have access to so much data that their appetite for consumption has gone up.
Yeah.
So you guys are pretty much at the forefront of that, and you're driving that. And what's your take on how much bigger this will get? Obviously, next IPL will be bigger, and the next one and the next one. But what's your take on how big this is really going to be as a company or as a business?
So I think, you just mentioned about the consumption of data going up, and I think, it's very validating, and it's a very proud moment for us at Hotstar to believe that, let's say if you're spending 1 GB of data, a very large portion of it you're spending on Hotstar. So it's almost like you're rationing for data, because even though 1 GB data may be 7 cents per GB or whatever it is, but I think as an Indian economy, we are very cost conscious about our data, right? So I think it's a moment of pride for us to take a step back and think, look, you are spending so much time and you trust us. So having built that service is fabulous. Being applicable in your day-to-day life every day, whenever you have some free time, it's great that you're thinking of us. Right. So we are actually competing with a phone call with a friend, because in a free time we'll call up a friend. We're competing with you there. We're competing with your sutta break. We're competing with your some time on social network, right? So we're not just competing with just another media OTT app. We are competing. Right. We're capturing a bigger share of your space in your mind when you think about spending time, right? So I think that's amazing for us. So I think it's interesting. So we've just scratched the surface, because today a lot of our usage is mostly from tier 1, tier 2 markets. There are a lot of markets where there is penetration of internet and smartphone, but there's no penetration of TV. Okay. So when you think about Hotstar or any of these OTT apps, right, and they're typically the secondary screen, TV is the primary screen, right. But there are large chunks of India where there is no primary screen, where the phone is their primary screen. Right. So there is almost an opportunity of, we have audacious goals in terms of overtaking YouTube when it comes to our monthly active users. Wow. We are almost there.
Wow.
In India, right?
That's killer.
Right. So I think, and we will get there, given the fact that we have all this entertainment and people know these stars. Right. People know Bollywood, people know the TV stars, everybody knows cricket. So given the fact that we have access to this library of content, nothing can stop us from becoming the primary screen where TV cannot reach because of socioeconomic conditions. Right. But yeah, I think we've just scratched the surface is where I'll leave it with you.
Awesome. On that note, we're going to take a quick break, come back and talk some more.
So it's been another great week on IVM Podcast, just like it is every week. If you aren't following us on social media, you should. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Send us a message, send us a comment. Let us know what you think about the stuff that we're doing and the stuff that you're listening to. This week on Cyrus Says, Cyrus is joined by writer Vrishali Telang. She speaks about jumping from TV to books and her memories of producing MTV Loveline. On the Scene and the Unseen, Amit is joined by founder-editor of The Wire, Siddharth Bhatia, and senior editor of The Hindu, Peter Griffin. They discuss the current state of Indian media and the role of journalists today. This week, Indranil Guha, co-founder of FinPech, talks to Anupam on Paisa Vaisa about alpha SIPs. Last week on Know Your Kanun, lawyer and host Amber Rana took us through the history and scope of Section 497 and the time when adultery was first recognized as an offense. On the Kinetic Living podcast, Urmi spoke to IVM's co-founder Kavita Rajwade about her love for functional training, food, and the morning workout routine that she strictly follows. And again, guys, I just really want to remind you, the best way to spread the word about podcasting is you. You're our ambassadors. Please go out and tell a friend. Ask them to listen to something that you have enjoyed and that you think that they would enjoy as well. And with that, let's move on with your show.
All right, welcome back. We've been having a fun chat with Mihir about all the cool stuff that happens at Hotstar and, of course, the mind-numbing scale of what you do, especially during IPL season. But a few things came to mind about how being a platform like you are, obviously you're free to all for most of your things, but there is a certain premium subscription element about it. And, of course, while you guys are... There is an ad-supported bit of the model as well, but you're also a subscription platform. And that's something which I think is new to the Indian audience, right? So how have you seen it being taken up? And what's your take on, the growth for subscription versus ad-supported?
Is it also mostly English-speaking audience that is going for the subscription, or is it, or do you see it like across the board?
Yeah, like all the rest of India, which you said, which is not addressable by TV. How do you think they'll take to this, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I think just take a step back and walk you through the freemium and the premium businesses and what's covered amongst those, right? So the freemium business is what you'll find a lot of the Star TV shows, Hindi vernacular, as well as some Bollywood movies, right? And then on the premium side, which is the paid subscription side, so all your English content is behind a paywall, all your sports is behind a paywall. And for people who want to access Star TV shows before TV and ad-free, they get that if you're a premium subscriber, right?
Right. Okay.
So for a premium subscriber, there are multiple benefits they get: the library of English shows, all sports, and before TV and ad-free, right? So I'll answer your question first, right? I think what is the, it's only English or it's across? I think it's a good mix of English and vernacular, because for people who are die-hard fans of the Star TV shows, for them the value proposition is before TV and ad-free.
Right.
And then for the English audience, for them to have access to Game of Thrones, This Is Us, Modern Family, Friends, Big Bang Theory, right? All these key shows, it's only through Hotstar.
Right.
Right. So that's how. So there's a good mix of both English and vernacular. And to your question on where do I see it growing? This market is right. So I feel like the getting people to pay is difficult, right? I think when you see so what people want to pay for, right? I mean, people want to pay for content that they don't get outside anywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's repeatedly something that is coming out in our consumer research, right? But when people find content that they are not finding outside, they are willing to pay for it, right? So one is that, right? Then people are willing to pay for sports, right? People are crazy about sports, so people are willing to pay for sports, absolutely. And then for these marquee content like Game of Thrones, right? I think which is not accessible anywhere else. So yes, so there is a propensity for people to pay as long as it solves one key job to be done in their life.
Right.
But the difficult part is communicating that to the user. People have shown that, look, and especially the kind of money that we ask for in terms of subscription, it's not that much, right? When we talk about a year-long pack is 1,000 rupees, right? A year-long sports pack is 300 rupees. So it's not that it's a very expensive pack. But I think it's more about communicating to them the value proposition. And once they're convinced, I think, with Amazon Prime Video, with Netflix, Z5, all of these having their own, the whole subscription model. So I think it's just, again, just scratching the surface. We've just started. So while Netflix is really catering to the top of the rung, the very discerning English audience, right? I think they've adopted that strategy to sort of build a market that is very attractive for people, a very aspirational market, right? So everybody's approaching the subscription market from a very different place. Amazon Prime Video is approaching it from you buy. Typically, people come for the retail benefits, for the shopping benefits, but along with that, here's an extra thing that you can add to your bag.
Right.
The value proposition that they're going with is more like latest movies. right? Which is probably a myth, but anyways, they're going with that value proposition. But yeah, so I think it's very interesting. Everybody's approaching it from a very different lens, and I think this market is just getting started. I think the whole cord cutter phenomena, which is in the US, right? I think we will see that very soon in India as well.
Yeah, I've actually disconnected.
I have cable at home, but I don't know how to use the remote, right? If there's a problem with the Tata Sky, I have no idea what to do.
Yeah, I've disconnected. They called me and asked me, it's been a year since you disconnected. What happened? I said, I don't watch TV anymore. And he couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I was like, what, you don't watch? I was like, no, I don't watch TV anymore. He really had no answer, so I felt bad for him. But yeah, that's the truth. I don't
but
watch
you
TV.
don't, right? Between Hotstar and Netflix and Amazon and YouTube, my television's set. I don't need anything else.
Yeah.
Like the Fire Stick even has like all the news and stuff on it. You don't need anything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but it's going to be interesting to see how people pay and the quantum of what they pay, right? Especially if initially they used to pay one bill for cable, now it's a split of a bunch of small bills.
It's turning out to be a hell of a lot more.
Yeah. You don't realize it.
You don't realize it. Yeah, you absolutely don't.
Did you see your monthly credit card statements? Yeah.
Well,
But coming back to obviously there's a business angle to content, and again, given that Star, the parent organization, is obviously still in the business of producing shows, and there's a on-air channel also, and a bunch of channels which you guys telecast, versus Hotstar, which is the cool tech new kid on the block. How do you see that playing? I mean, do you see that you're competing with yourself in a lot of ways? Or what's the conversation like inside about how Hotstar is, or is there a focus on everyone wanting to go to digital? Is that the road ahead you see as for India?
So I think there is no competition, because if you think about it, I think, as I said, we're in the business of storytelling. On-air TV channels is one medium, Hotstar is another medium, right? So I think the more we are able to take our stories to as many people as we can, being a part of such a large organization, I think that everybody, especially post-IPL, I think everybody started realizing how important Hotstar is, right? So I think, I don't think there's any competition. I think if anything, there's a lot of collaboration where we sort of figure out that, hey, these are the shows which are doing really well on TV. How do we build them on Hotstar? Right. Or here are the learnings from Hotstar. How can we influence your selection of producing new shows? So if anything, I think it's just getting stronger and will get much stronger, not as competition, but more of, just another medium of storytelling.
Interesting. So coming back a little more to what we spoke about earlier about how, at Hotstar, obviously you're the tech company and the teams behind it, everything rallies around the IPL, and you've seen some stellar growth, and you're seeing more and more growth going forward. But the Indian consumer, again, the same people who we are talking about, subscribers and so on, how have you seen them respond to the various things you're doing when it comes to product changes, when it comes to marketing strategy changes? What is the sort of drivers of growth for an Indian consumer vis-a-vis what you've seen, in your past life in the US and a more mature market?
Right. So I think when you talk about the US, I think you're talking to everybody who speaks English, right? Where the code of conduct is fairly standardized, right? Where again, like when Super Bowl is like a massive religion, like Monday Night Football,
That's
Sunday Night
IPL,
Football, right? Right, it's their IPL, right? So I think but there I think as I said, the codes of conduct, the codes at which you play is fairly standardized. It's a very mature audience. It's a very digital savvy audience, right? I think so there, as well as in terms of it's much easier to reach to them, because again, everybody's on digital. 90% of the US market have access to smartphones and 4G, right? So I think it's much easy to reach out to them. Versus when we talk about India becomes a very challenging market to put your voice out and be heard, right? Because everybody's shouting at the top of their voice to get heard.
There's a lot of noise. Yeah.
There's a lot of noise, right? I think when you look at the banners, when you walk, these hoardings or radio, TV, versus YouTube, versus in the US is mostly YouTube or Facebook or Google advertising on that. Versus in India, it becomes very exciting for a marketer where you have access to so many channels and where you really want to build reach and frequency, right? And not only have access to so many channels, but also the marketing strategy should be deeply localized depending on who you're talking to and where you're talking to them, right? So for example, for IPL, one of the biggest growths we saw was on the back of we had commentary in 7 different languages, not just in English and Hindi, right? We had Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, right? So I think it's insane, and I think each of these languages saw a very good adoption amongst our base, and so I think you cannot have a one-size-fits-all approach in India. In the US, you can understand your consumer. You can do a bit of segmentation there, and you can reach out. Of course, it's complicated, but I think what makes India complicated is you have the socioeconomic cut, you have the language cut, you have the region cut, you have the channel cut, right? I think so. It becomes very exciting for a marketer to go. But I think one of the key levers that we've seen is talking to a person in a language they are comfortable with, and being welcoming to them. As I said, having an IPL stream. Today, when somebody signs up for Hotstar, they are prodded, what language are you interested in seeing? What language content are you interested in seeing? So we're taking these small steps towards making a consumer comfortable around that.
So, speaking of languages, right? I mean, we spoke a little bit about, we spoke a little bit about this, but can you talk a little bit more about, how the uptake's been in regional languages compared to English, right? Because when we think of OTT services, generally we're thinking of people consuming primarily in English. You said that's clearly not the case at this point. But how do you see that playing out a bit?
Yeah. So interestingly, we just wrapped up Bigg Boss Tamil, Telugu and Malayalam, right? So super massive shows.
Oh yeah, they were separate shows.
There were 3 separate shows, right? Right now Bigg Boss Hindi is going, but that's with colors, right? So but Bigg Boss Hindi, Tamil, Telugu was on Star, so obviously was on Hotstar. So we saw like a 3x growth year over year. Already we were on like a massive tens of millions of base this last year. Today we're looking at 3x growth just on the back of these 3 shows.
Right.
So compared to that, when you have, let's say, so Modern Family is, of course, the most popular in India,
right,
from an awareness show after Game of Thrones. So Modern Family launched on 26 September. You would not even think of that level of scale on the adoption of an English content.
Right.
So, but these 3 shows, I mean, there's a massive adoption in vernacular content, or even if a new Bengali show, launches, there'll be like a ton of people coming to watch before TV.
People want their own languages.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, I've seen that as well, that people are just, they want languages which they feel they're comfortable with, which they're native in, which they get the idiomatic sense of, right?
Absolutely.
Which you don't when you're listening in a second language.
Yeah, and if you think about Netflix, right, that's what even they're playing with Sacred Games, Ghoul, Love Stories, Love Per Square Foot, right? I think a lot of the originals that they're producing are like and all the communication they're doing in India is all around Sacred Games. You will not see House of Cards or the Queen or anything of these, on the hoardings outside.
Right.
So same thing with Amazon Prime Video as well, right? Investing so much money now in regional content.
Right.
So I think winning here means, making you feel comfortable. Yeah, making it regional.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and obviously the larger sense of the market is that. I think while we will always have our Game of Thrones and we'll have our maybe stand-up comedy and whatnot, the larger market, the pie out there is definitely regional language content.
You're the 1% of 1%, Shiladitya. Don't forget.
Yeah, we're all the 1% of 1%. Come on.
Yeah, there's the real India is not us.
Yes.
We refuse to use the words India versus Bharat.
Bharat, yes.
Those are banned words on this show.
But that's what it is. We keep coming back to that, and we've not even seen the half of it, is what we also realize.
Yeah.
But thanks so much for doing this, Mihir. I think this was very insightful. Of course, we will continue to watch Hotstar grow by leaps and bounds, and as you said, we're already planning for next IPL, which I'm sure will be even more bigger. And of course, there'll be some cool stuff to look forward to on the product as well. I'm sure you guys are, and happily, one of the folks building out of Bombay. It's one of another team on our show.
How big is your team out of Bombay?
So about 350 people.
350 out of Bombay?
Yeah.
Tech team?
Yeah, tech. I mean, that entire tech marketing.
Wow, that's
content.
amazing.
See, that's
serious.
They are sucking up all the tech talent in the city. That's also true.
Just to begin with, is quite limited, of course, as you would know. Shiladitya, so yeah, I think we need to build another like Silicon Valley of Bangalore, like how Bangalore has a reputation. We need to build that for Mumbai as well.
Yes,
bring people back.
Silicon Beach, because you have access to the beaches here.
Yes.
So.
Which are so great.
Yeah.
Or Silicon traffic, but I guess not. Probably that is not a good part of it.
But this is so cool. Thanks so much. Where do folks reach out to? Do you have a Twitter handle or anywhere else you can say? Of course, you should join our Slack channel later, but anywhere you can shout out where people can say hi to you.
Yeah, so I'm available on Twitter. My handle is Mihir Shah 56. So that's not my birth year, but it's just 56. So that's Mihir Shah 56. As you can reach out to me at
Awesome. And of course,
please everybody subscribe to the Slack channel. Go to ivmpodcast.com/Shunya One. Over there's a button saying subscribe to Slack. Click that button, send us your email address, and we'll send you an invite back. Also, please do a rating or a review on iTunes or TuneIn or Castbox or wherever.
Google Podcast app.
Wherever you can. If you can find a place to make a rating or a review, just go and do one. Those things help a lot.
Yes, Savan, Spotify. Where else is Shunya One?
It's everywhere, man. I mean, like, we're on Savan, Spotify, Book My Show, Jukebox. We're on all the podcasting apps. But you know where we are, which is the best place to get us? The IVM Podcast app.
Yes.
That's where everybody should go.
All right, then. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Did you know that Parsis in Mumbai, instead of being left at the Tower of Silence after they die, are now cremated? And why? Because a cow fell sick in the early 1990s. Did you know that the smog in Delhi is caused by something that farmers in Punjab do and that there's no way to stop them? Did you know that there wasn't one gas tragedy in Bhopal, but 3? One of them was seen, but 2 were unseen. Did you know that many well-intentioned government policies hurt the people they're supposed to help? Why was demonetization a bad idea? How should GST have been implemented? Why are all our politicians so corrupt when not all of them are bad people? I'm Amit Verma, and in my weekly podcast, The Seen and the Unseen, I take a shot at answering all these questions and many more. I aim to go beyond the seen and show you the unseen effects of public policy and private action. I speak to experts on economics, political philosophy, cognitive neuroscience, and constitutional law so that the insights can blow not only my mind, but also yours. The Seen and the Unseen releases every Monday. So do check out the archives and follow the show at seenunseen.in. You can also subscribe to The Seen and the Unseen on whatever podcast app you happen to prefer.
Hi, I'm Vishal Gondal, an entrepreneur. I've had the chance to meet and understand how some of the super achievers have hacked their way to success, and they have done spectacular innovations. Now I take a closer look at these people's lives to find out what lies beneath the force, only on the Vishal Gondal Show. Episodes out fortnightly on Wednesdays on the IVM website, app, or your favorite podcasting platform.